Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the live stream. My name is Sam, La Production Tips and Tools. Got a little cold today. Sorry, guys. Welcome to the live stream. Today, we're going to be talking about. Sorry, guys. I hope you understand. Today, we're going to be talking about the best way to build a church live stream if you don't have a lot of money. Basically, how to build a church live stream on a budget. And today is special, by the way, because we have the one and only Russell in the house. I'm not going to take much time. I'm going to introduce him in a moment. But before that, I want to acknowledge you. We got Emmanuel from Ghana. Welcome to the live stream. From West Africa, welcome to the live stream. So, guys, thank you so much for being here. And again, I'm not gonna take much time doing all the intros and stuff because today I want to make sure I give all the time to the one and only Russell. If you come from a church community, you probably know about Russell, but if you don't, today you're gonna know about him as well. He's gonna be giving us a lot of tips, on how you can actually build a pro, nice looking live stream setup for your church. Basically, he has a YouTube channel. Again, he's going to introduce himself, but I just want to let you know. He has a YouTube channel, and he explained a lot how he built his church live stream using basically Lumix cameras. Okay. So let me not take much time. I'm going to introduce him right now. Hey, Russell, how you doing? Yes, yes, man. I'm happy to have you. I've actually been a fan of yours. I think maybe back in the day when you had like maybe 300 subscribers. And now your audience is growing. I've been so inspired by your videos. I'm a big fan. And honestly, it's a big honor to have you on the live stream today. For people who probably don't know about you, I'm assuming a lot of people from the church community have come across your channel. But for people who don't know about you, who are you, man?
I've been here at this church for about 12 years now, actually. And previously, I was a full-time media director. So I've always been kind of in the tech world. And now I just get to do it all here at my church. And about a little over a year ago, I decided to start, documenting my journey as a worship pastor and realizing that I could just share the stuff that I'm learning and these tips and tricks and help so many other guys out that are in the same position, in the same boat. So it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, just hey guys, can you tell me if you can hear Russell now? Looks like they couldn't hear you.
It's coming through. I don't know. It's whenever we're live streaming.
Yeah. So I think we had the little hookup, but I think it's better now. Yes. Yeah. So guys, by the way, today I'm using a software called Video Ninja, which is a conferencing software for free. And we're doing a little bit of, we're trying to experiment with different options to see if something goes wrong. Please understand, but we're gonna do our best. So I think we're back online. Let's just go back to the first question, which was for people who probably don't know about you. If you don't mind repeating yourself,
Yeah, for
just a
sure,
little
man.
quick.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys can hear me. Always love technology. Live streaming is always scary and fun. And I've learned that over the years as I've tried to build out our live stream. I'm a worship and media arts pastor, actually full time here at a church near Tulsa, Oklahoma. Been here 12 years and started the YouTube thing about a year ago, just sharing, documenting the stuff that I'm learning along the way, trying to like make your budget go as far as you can at a church, which we all know we want to be good stewards. So yeah, man, I'm just happy to get to chat and hopefully share what I've learned.
Perfect. So, let's go straight to the content actually. Guys, let me know in the chat if everything is good. Feel free to, let me know where you're watching from and everything. But tell us a little bit how, let's start with the budget, right? Just, I'm not going to ask you to tell me how much you spend on your setup, but what was your budget? Guys, I invite you to go check out his channel. I put a link down below in description. But what's the ideal budget that I'll call, like, you get a pro live stream setup but still on a budget, right? That will look good, but you kind of like don't have a lot of money. What's the ideal budget? How much are we talking about?
Yeah, I think it's the key question that so many guys, they never start with that question because you can make a live stream out of whatever budget you have. I mean, nowadays, iPhones and NDI and all that stuff, you can do a lot with very little. For us, we started live streaming actually, I think in about 2015 at our church, and I would literally just set an iPhone back at the back of the sound booth, and that's how we started. I didn't have a budget, and here at my church, I have a small, but I mean it's enough for us to do what we want to do. But I've had to build incrementally my live stream, and so I just remember in 2016, I think it was, I bought a GH4, Panasonic GH4, just to use to like capture things around the church, to film interviews. I do a lot of videography on the side, and I just realized like this camera actually we could use this for our live stream stuff. So I picked up another one, and then we used like these two video input cards onto my old MacBook Pro, and we were feeding a little janky audio from the soundboard, but it was so much better. And it just kind of took me down this rabbit hole trail of like, how can I, help our viewers that are watching online to really feel like they're a part of the service and to in a really good way online. And so it's been what, 5 or 6 years now of just building out the system. We've spent probably about $20,000 to $23,000, and that includes like every item from converters to cable to, we run an 8 camera setup now.
Okay, so so if I understand, budget wise, you don't really have to have, let's say, let's go with $23,000. You don't really have to have the $23,000 to start, like, to be like, yeah, I have $23,000, or I'm gonna raise it and start building my live stream setup. You can start by 1 camera, 2 cameras, keep adding. Maybe give yourself some, I don't know, give yourself 3 to 4 years to kind of build the whole system, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so when we were building out our system, I just decided that we were going to go with the Panasonic stuff because of, it has a lot of benefits. And I think, Sam, you've got content on your channel, and I've got stuff on mine that talks a lot about why we chose those cameras. But cost is obviously one thing. There's some other benefits. But whatever system you choose to go with, maybe you go with Canon broadcast, like, zoomable camcorders. Just stick in that line. That's what we've realized has worked really well for us. And so I've liked the Panasonic stuff because we've been able to take it and use it in different parts of our industry, whether that's filming interviews or going to camps or doing other things like that. It's like, I'm not a fan of PTZ cameras necessarily, just because especially for churches starting out, like, you don't have much of a budget, and so we need everything multi-purpose, right? And so you lock down a camera at the back of the room sitting there as a PTZ, and it has one job, and you just spent $2,000 on it. Where, you go out and you could get 3 G85s right now. I saw last night on Best Buy a G85 with ends is $500.
Okay, that's interesting. Let's talk about PTZ cameras versus camcorders and mirrorless. Because personally, I'm not a big fan of PTZ, personally, okay? But that's just my personal opinion. And I used to use a camcorder, and I had a bad experience with it. Right now, I'm like, mirrorless or DSLR. So let's talk about that. What's your take on that?
Well, obviously, you have to evaluate your own situation in your room. If we're talking churches, there are some churches where maybe you're in like a cathedral and you have no options except to use PTZ cameras. I understand that. For most of our churches nowadays, we do have the options to kind of choose. And in my opinion, the amount of money that you have to spend to get a really great PTZ camera, maybe one of the new Canons that's come out that's like $6,000 for a 1-inch chip sensor. That's
Yeah.
so much money, and it has one job. And most of our churches, like, we just can't afford that's more than your annual budget, maybe. And so I think you can make your money stretch so much further by going maybe the mirrorless camera route, unlimited HDMI output record time, swappable lenses, so you can reposition your cameras in your room to different spaces and be able to get different shots. So much better in low light because you can use lenses that are cheap but have a wider aperture than the camcorder would. And I just think the look of a mirrorless camera is really what is more appealing to watch than like a camcorder sitting in the back panning back and forth. So, but you have to evaluate what it look like and then kind of go from there and go backwards.
Yeah. So okay, let's talk about actually I've got some people here in the chat. So guys, we're gonna try to cover the content, and then if you guys have questions, we're gonna have it, let's say around in 30 minutes, maybe 30 minutes before we end the stream, we're gonna go to your questions. So feel free to leave your questions in the chat. So let's talk about the Lumix cameras, because it looks like you're a big fan of Lumix cameras. And there's a reason for that. Can you tell us why you've been using Lumix cameras?
Well, whenever I first started down this road, Panasonic was one of the very few mirrorless camera options that would give you unlimited HDMI clean output and didn't have overheating issues back in the day. And so we invested into that system, into that line, and I still think it's great. I mean, I've got, I think, 3 Panasonic G7s. That's what this is on right now, is a Panasonic G7 with a Sigma 18 to 35. And then I've got a G85, a GH5, and then a couple of GH4 as well. And we do have one kind of broadcast camera that is called a DVX200, which is still a Panasonic, but there's our one camera that's a little bit different. Uh, Besides those things, I love the lens flexibility that Micro Four Thirds gives you. You can adapt lenses onto the system from Canon or Nikon. So if you already have stuff laying around from photography, you can use those in your live stream already. Like, this is a EF mount that is adapted to this body. And the other thing that I really like about the Micro Four Thirds Panasonic system is the range of the field. So we could go like full out, full frame, Sony mirrorless or Canon, C200s or even RP. But what I found is that like Micro Four Thirds gives you just enough depth of field to have that kind of cinematic blurry background, but still have enough in the plane of focus that your operators aren't constantly like toying with focus, trying to get that razor thin margin in focus, if that makes sense. So those are a few of the things I like about it.
Yeah, so I'm sure you would recommend those cameras, especially because right now using a G7,
Hmm.
I've been recommending the G7 as well. G85 is a great camera. Uh, GH4 obviously with full HDMI, full size HDMI, and then what about the GH5?
I love GH5, and I've taken my GH5 all over the world to record footage for mission stuff. We use it every week as a handheld camera, actually, with no stabilizer, just with that built-in sensor stabilization, combined with a lens with stabilization. Like, our guys just sit on the side stage and they're hand holding, and it looks buttery smooth. It's like good handheld footage, not micro jittery handheld footage. And man, now with the G85 down in price even more, it's got the sensor stabilization as well. And that can even help, like for us, we have our cameras on different motion control units, and having that sensor stabilization is really nice.
Yeah, except it's kind of a little pricier, right? It's I think it's about $1,200 right now.
Yeah, the GH5 is, and so I'm recommending the G85 a lot because it's basically the same image as a GH4 kind of line, but it's got the sensor stabilization. And so I think, like I
I,
said, I saw it last night for like $500. It's crazy.
yeah, I think the G85 is kind of like the sweet spot because you
Hmm.
got the stabilization, you got unlimited recording. I mean, if you're recording with it, you got. I mean, obviously, no overheating. All the Lumix cameras don't overheat, so I think it's like the best. I would say it's the best for live streaming and recording videos, obviously.
Yeah,
So
it's good
let's
value.
talk up. Yeah, it's a good value. And the top of that is like what, $500. Sometimes you can find it used for $400 actually,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
And that's another key is we built out our system with almost all used cameras, all used lenses. Don't be afraid of it. You know, find good deals, and it'll help your dollar stretch.
Yeah, man. Like, let's talk about actually getting used gear. Like, how do you feel? Personally, when I recommend stuff to people, I tell them to buy brand new, because I don't want to recommend them to buy used stuff and then they have a problem with it. But like, personally, I buy used stuff, okay, and never had any problem. I mean, I think I had a problem with the lens. I even made a video about it and I returned it because it was on eBay. So eBay, you can return. You have like, I think, 30 days. So can we talk a little bit about that? Because sometimes people are scared of actually buying used gear.
Yeah, for sure, man. I have had really good luck. I know there's some horror stories out there, but if you know what to look for as far as the quality of like the camera that you're looking at, the pictures, and ask good questions beforehand, make sure you're not buying from some weird seller that has never sold before. If it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. Um, but
Yeah.
making sure to look at things like asking questions like, does the HDMI port function correctly? Because on these cameras, they've got micro HDMI on a lot of them, which can be a little temperamental.
Yeah.
Just making sure to ask all the good questions up front. And for instance, you just have to wait for a good deal. We bought a 70 to 200 lens that is usually $1,200, and I found it on eBay for $500 because somebody that didn't know anything about photography thought it was an f4 version, but it was actually the f2.8 IS2. And so I just got this killer deal. It was crazy,
Yeah.
but I watched for that for like a year, so it takes time.
Yeah. So like I look at this, eventually I'll say the ultimate um live stream setup for churches um would be made of let's say 8 cameras max. But is that the magic number, or I mean even less, but like if you're building, what would be the target? Um like how many cameras would you need to kind of, I think you guys are using 8.
We are using 8, and that is because we only have 2 man cameras. And so for variety, I've got some other stuff going on with our other 6 cameras. I think that most churches with the switchers that are available now, like an ATEM Mini Extreme or something like that, are probably looking at 6 cameras and then 2 feeds coming from your presentation software with an alpha and a key. And then you can use ProPresenter or something like that to determine when it's going to be a full screen video or it's going to be a keyed graphic or something like that. But you're always going to want to start with a head to toe and a tight shot, like just in the center back of the room. And then after that, you can start adding variety in with different shots. But the more man cameras you can do, the better. But I think 6 plenty if you are strategic about it. For us, we were just able to do 8, so we do 8. We may not even use all every Sunday though. So
Cool. All right. So let's talk about switchers. Right now, uh, what's the best switcher that you would recommend for churches on budget? What would
okay,
be the best investment?
yeah. So I think investment is the key word because you got to think future minded, right? And as you expand your system, how do you want to utilize your switcher? Um, are you going to need to use iMag at some point? Is latency a thing? Are you distributing this video throughout your building through TVs and different things. You may need to be looking at, the old trusty ATEM Studio HD. We actually use two of those just because it has SDI and aux outputs and all these things. The ATEM Mini Extreme is a pretty good value for churches. It really is because it has built-in encoding and built-in recording. The only issue is that it's only HDMI, and but it's a pretty good value. So I'm using an ATEM Mini Pro here, and I think that's a good fit for a lot of churches because it does have the multi-view that you can utilize. It has microphone inputs and it gives you four HDMI inputs. So if you're just looking to get off the ground, that's a good starting place, I think, is an ATEM Mini Pro.
All right. So, what if you were building for the future? So, let's say, because four inputs, if you're sending graphics through your switcher, then you only have three inputs left. What would you say about that? Would you recommend maybe getting something that like the Extreme with eight inputs? Maybe for the future, if you're trying to build like kind of future-proof setup, what's
Yeah.
your take on that?
Well, I know a lot of people will start out with software-based encoding like OBS or something like that to kind of overcome some of those input shortages and not to have your graphics coming into the ATEM. I'm just a big fan having everything go through your hardware and then that sending on. And so, yeah, man, if you can afford it, I would say go for that. If you can get a switcher with more inputs, go for it. I mean, we actually use two of the Studio HDs in tandem. So like our cameras go into one and then it feeds into our second one, which adds our graphics on top of that. That's not like standard and there's some issues with that. But for us, cost
Hmm.
wise, that was the best way to do it at the time instead of getting like an ATEM 2ME or something like that. But you know what? If you only have a couple cameras, get a couple of capture cards, put it into if you MacBook and throwing it into OBS, just going and get your feet wet. You don't have to immediately jump into the deep end.
Yeah, that's actually a good point because let's say if you're just getting started and you only have two cameras, instead of investing in a big expensive switcher, why don't you just get cheap capture cards, use that, and whenever you're ready for getting more cameras, and you can buy a better switcher. Let's talk about the future of the ATEM. Eventually, I think we're gonna go to streaming in 4K, SD. I think HDMI is still here for a few years. It's digital and it can send good information. But where do you see the ATEM going future wise? What's your take on this?
Man, I've got to believe that they are going to come out with this unit that is a rack mountable, updated Studio HD, Studio 4K that has the built-in encoding and recording options like the ATEM Mini Extreme and the Mini Pro and all of that. I just think my fear is that they're worried about cannibalizing all of their other units that they've come out with in the last year. These hyperdeck minis that are rack mounted that you can record to a hard disk. I've got a Web Presenter HD, and that would cannibalize that as well. But so maybe we're further from that than I think. But man, if they came out with, a switcher that was rack mounted that maybe still had four SDI, four HDMI, please give us another aux or two if you can, just to be able to navigate video. And it's got to have built-in scalers. That's one of the biggest things that's annoying about the ATEM Studio HD. No
Yeah,
scalers built in. Come on.
yeah, that's like you buy a camera, then you gotta buy scalers.
Yeah, and people don't think
Yeah,
about that. A lot of times they just
yeah,
think, oh, if I plug this in, it's going to start working. But now
yeah,
you're investing in you know, other kind of decimators or something to get your computer input in
yeah,
there, and that's another $500. So
yeah, yeah. All right, let's take a look at some of the questions. Okay. See, Victor. See, Victor says hi. Victor, thank you so much for being your brother. I appreciate that. We get Jesus something. Sorry, I can't read your name, but asking live stream based software. I don't know. Can you see the question?
Yep, I got you.
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead. What's the best software? Actually, I think that was our next point. What's the best software that you would recommend for churches?
I mean, you got options nowadays for sure. ProPresenter is up there. I mean, people are starting to use it more and more as a live streaming software. I just think it's expensive to get into that for people that are just starting because even a seat license is what, I don't know, 300 or 400 bucks. And you really have to have one to get into the ProPresenter streaming by itself kind of land. And I'm not a fan of having one software do two things like doing your in house and sending a live stream. That's just very dangerous, in my opinion. Then you got
Yeah.
things like Ecamm that maybe people are familiar with that can do a lot of things. OBS is obviously free. I, back in the day, tried OBS and it just gave me horrible fits. Like every week, the audio latency was a different number. And so I could never get it to match. And it would just had trouble encoding. But this was probably, like I said, 5 years ago. So I think OBS has gotten a lot better. You could always give
Yeah.
that a try. It's free.
Yeah.
We used Mimo Live for a while, and it was okay. It's like a German company, so there's different stuff out there for sure. Even if like we use Restream to send our stream to Facebook and YouTube, and it's got a built-in studio now that I've used from time to time, and you can add graphics into it and do things with it, and it's all web-based. So you use OBS though, right? You pretty familiar with it?
Yeah, I actually use OBS for my live streaming here in the studio. I've actually used it in the church as well. One thing I would say, OBS is actually perfect. OBS is very, very powerful. They keep updating it. The only problem with the OBS is you have to do everything manually. So I'll give you an example, like to set up this stream right now. I had to come up with the graphics, have to go in Photoshop, create this lower third SAM, all the graphics, the background. So everything is, you kind of have to create from scratch. So if you're not creative, if you don't understand those kind of things, then it's going to be hard for you because you kind of have to create everything from scratch. That's the only problem with OBS. But other than that, it's a powerful software. It's actually more powerful than some of the softwares that I know right now that you kind of have to pay. But other than that, let's talk about vMix. Because here's my question, okay? You could actually live stream using an actual switcher, like encoding switcher, like the ATM Mini Pro or Extreme. And can we talk about using that option versus using a software-based encoder or live streaming software?
Yeah, man. So for years, we did software encoding, and it was pretty successful. There was some hiccups along the way, and the main thing that I was not happy with was just the quality output. And I've never used vMix. I think vMix is Windows only, and I'm a Mac only guy. Like Windows scares me now. Like I don't. Where's the start button? I don't know. But there's other softwares that obviously you can get great results with. We decided to jump into the hardware encoding world whenever Blackmagic came out with the Web Presenter HD, and I've been really happy with it. I've never done like the Box Stream or Resi, any of these that sell the encoder and that you have to have like a monthly thing to do. So that's why I was intrigued by that. I've got a Teradek Waves sitting right here. If you haven't heard of that, it's got a screen. It's like a 5-in-1 device where you can live stream from it. It encodes, it records, but it's like $1,000 or something. So there's options out there, but I think the hardware encoding is intriguing because I'm a fan of having things do like one job. Like we have a lighting computer, we have a recording computer, and everything kind of has its own job. That way, if something crashes, like just kills that part of our worship, experience.
Yeah. So I would say some people actually do combine both you could have the ATEM Mini uh, Pro, and maybe use like what I'm doing right now. I'm using OBS, but I have an ATEM Mini connected as well. So that's another option too. Let's see. We may have some questions here. We got James. Hey, we on. Okay, I'll let you. Can you see the question?
They own an Allen and Heath QU16 at our church. What's the best means of or techniques to live stream and at a budget? It's talking about audio for the from the Allen and Heath.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're gonna actually get a
Yeah,
time to talk about audio.
yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah. So I think we come back to that question in a minute. Let's see if you have another question here. Um, which is better for live streaming, a USB audio send or a normal aux send?
Yeah, I've
The-
never used like I think what you're asking is like if you're going to use a USB interface or just like aux out of
yeah,
something into it.
yeah, I
Obviously, with
think
like
so.
an ATEM Mini Pro and the ATEM Mini Extreme, you're kind of limited to that eighth inch aux cord. Or what a lot of people will do is you'll just go into your camera. So if your camera has a XLR, a balanced audio input, then you can utilize that as your microphone in. Whatever you do, I encourage you to do stereo if you can. USB, like if you're trying to use a USB microphone, you're going to have to match up the latency with that with your cameras. So that's why a lot of people will try and put the audio into one of the cameras. That way you don't have to worry about matching, your frame delay in your ATEM software, which is not that big a deal. I mean, we delay it at our soundboard. And so the nice thing about some of the larger ATEMs is they have those balanced audio inputs right on board. So we go stereo out of our board into our ATEM Studio HD.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, I think USB is always the. I'll say, I'm not gonna say it's the best option, but I think it's more pro, um, to my opinion. But it's like it takes a lot to kind of set up, especially dealing with delays. I'll give you an example right now for this stream. I'm using OBS and ATEM Mini Pro, and I'm getting audio kind of routing through software and stuff. But I had to delay your voice. I think it was like 400 milliseconds. So those are things that you kind of have to record a clip, go to Premiere, figure out how many frames you kind of late, and So it's not everybody is able to do that, right? But
Yeah.
once you have it figured out, it's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
That's yeah. So I think it really depends on your setup, and what kind of hardware that you are using. So let's see if you have the questions. Mm, see, hi Sam, Prince here from Uganda. Big fan of your work. Keep it up, bro. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Brother, your video looks good. Thank you. Is it my video or Russell's? um, let's see. Russell does not know the switch button on Windows. I don't know. Did you get that joke?
I think it's like when I said I don't even know like where the start button is anymore on a Windows computer.
Because you use. Okay, okay, I get the
I've been on a
joke.
Mac for so long.
Yeah.
Dave had a
Okay.
good question on here.
Dave. Let me see. Where is it? Yeah, go ahead. You can answer
He
it. I
says,
can find.
which camera would you recommend between the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro and the Ursa Broadcast G2? So those are both great cameras, and I've actually got a buddy that picked up a couple of the Ursas 2 weeks ago that I'm going to hopefully be doing some testing with. In my opinion, the 6K Pro, for the value, like we're talking about value in this stream, I think it's a little bit higher of a value that you can get with the 6K Pro. I like that. Honestly, I don't have a ton of experience with the Blackmagic cams, but the 6K Pro, from everything that I've seen out of it, the image is so good, and the EF mount on it is handy, like for people like me that have a bunch of EF glass that we've been adapting to Micro Four Thirds. That's kind of like intriguing. So I'm not sure on the price difference though of the Ursa Broadcast G2. And there's so many of these Ursas that I can't hardly keep them in, like keep them
Yeah.
straight anymore. Of is that the live production 4K? Is that, which one are we talking about here?
There's a G2 actually. G2 it just came out actually. I think it was
Okay.
an upgrade on the G1. I think it has the 8K sensor or something. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and I think it has some sort of um, what is it? Like you can connect. You can live like you see. You can live stream from like directly from it, or you
Like
can control
RTMP.
it remote.
Yeah.
Yeah, like remotely, like the GH5 Mark II. You know, like
Hmm.
those kind of live streaming. Yeah, kind of remotely from the camera and stuff like that. You can even control it. So it's a nice camera. So, but I wanted to talk about actually because when it comes to church live streaming, that's where I think sometimes people get confused. I have my GH5 here, and um, this is it's a nice camera. But for live streaming, it still does the job, right? It can live stream and all that. But sometimes I feel like it's kind of overkill for just live streaming. You know what I mean? Like you're never gonna use vlog. I mean, maybe I want to actually try to live stream in vlog. So there's so many features you're never gonna use in the GH5. That's why I feel like sometimes people want to buy expensive cameras. They focus on the best expensive cameras. Actually, they end up not using even the features that those cameras are offering. Which take me to the next point, which is lighting and audio. Why is it important to have good audio and lighting for live streaming?
Oh my gosh, man. Yeah, let's talk about lighting for sure. Because so many people that I do consultations with will talk to me about, like, why does my stream not look very good? Something's wrong with these cameras. And so the first question I ask him is like, well, tell me about your lighting. And I'm not talking about like your effect lighting behind people and the colors of the walls. I'm talking about how are you key lighting people? And you got to have good key light on your team if you're going to have your cameras look good. And so, so many churches have made the mistake of getting RGB LED park cans and thinking that, oh, these create a white light that we can light our people with. Well, those are not true white. You're combining a red and a green and a blue diode, and it just never looks quite right on skin tones. And so, even if you're going to go the LED park in route, like look at the Chauvet Slim Par VW, which is a variable white LED diodes that will look right on skin tones. And then you can, the second part of that is once you've covered all of your people's, on stage with the right color light that's the same color temperature, then
Yeah,
you go in
no
and dial it in
RGB.
with white balance. No RGB,
Yeah,
please.
yeah,
So yeah, there's a lot that we could dive into on lighting, on angles of lights and backlighting and all of those different things. But honestly, at my church, we have pieced it together over the years to where it looks good. But I'm still not completely happy. We're still combining different like color temperature sources to get some key lights, just because right now we don't have the budget to invest in movers that have pure good white in them. And so that's part of projects to come for us.
yeah. So I would say, I don't know if you agree with me, but I would say um, maybe 50% of uh, your live stream's quality comes from your lighting,
Oh
or
yeah,
even
man.
more,
Yeah,
or
let's just
even
give an
more.
example, like for instance, this is what a lot of churches will do. This is we got nothing on the key light anymore, and we're just using our overhead light. And this is not going to be a flattering look on the camera. Now my white balance is not dialed in. I've got, fluorescent lights above, and now I'm overexposed and I look kind of orange, right? So if we turn our key light back on, and we've got our key light at a 45-degree angle up there, a little bit of backlight over here. If I turn that backlight off, you'll see a little difference. So now I have no definition between me and my backdrop. Where we turn that back on, and it just separates me a little bit more. And that's just here in my office, you know. So you apply that to your church setting for a live stream, and the concepts are still the same.
Yeah, guys, that's what you gotta do. I would actually say before you even buy your first camera, think about your lighting. Because even if you use a cheap camera like a G7, if you have a good lighting, man, it's gonna look professional. You don't even have to buy like those expensive five. Like you could take, let's say, instead of buying a $5,000 camera and just own one, I'd rather buy 6 or 7 G7s, right? That's just me, but I think it will actually be better for me to get 7 GH5s for like 500 each and build the full setup with that. Because you can go
Man,
ahead and buy, yeah, I mean, like, you can go ahead and buy the G2, like for $5,000. And I mean, you just stuck with one angle. And if your lighting is not good, probably not gonna look any better. So,
exactly.
so guys, your lighting is very, very important. Very, very important. So let's talk about, I think we're gonna go to audio. I think we had someone here asking a question about audio. Uh, we get Emmanuel. I watched a video on the G7 recently. Thought the camera is dope. Yeah, it's good. It's a good camera. Um, so say I'm a sound engineer and waiting to hear about the audio section. Yep, let's go ahead and actually talk about the audio section. Russell, what do you recommend? Let's go. Let's start with. I'm not gonna say the best sound mixer or sound console, but what's the best? Let's say the best budget sound console that you would recommend to churches. Also, let's talk about analog versus digital.
Yeah. So obviously you've heard about the X32. I mean, digital soundboards just give us so much flexibility, especially when it comes to live streaming. And so we're remodeling our youth center actually, and we're putting in an X32. We use a Midas M32 in our worship space, and so those kind of are brothers. And so we'll be able to cross train people. But digital gives you so much flexibility. That is not to say that with an analog board you can get a great live stream mix. The concepts are all the same. It's still just audio processing. It's just done in a different way. And digital boards give us a little bit more flexibility when it comes to that. So we could technically still do the exact live stream mix that we have on an analog board right now. We're not doing any mixing in the box. We're not sending out our audio interface via Dante or AES50 to a separate room and doing a different broadcast feed. Our broadcast mix is all done on the M32, and you could do this all on an analog board. So yeah, I mean, I can dive into how we do it if you want to talk about
Yeah,
that
sure.
too.
Go ahead. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So for us in our setting, we don't have a separate broadcast engineer. I know a lot of churches are looking to kind of move that way, but I have our setup actually as a stereo bus pair, and the key is that it's a post fader mix. So on your digital soundboard, you're going to pair two of your buses or aux sends if you're on an analog board, and you're going to send those out left and right. And then what you can do, since it's post fader, it's still dependent on your house mix a little bit. So if someone does move a fader up and down for a vocalist to have a solo or a guitarist to have a solo, it's actually going to boost that in your stereo bus. But what is great is that your initial mix for your live stream can be different. So your levels are independent on the initial mix, and you can have your pastor's mic be 6 dB higher. We have some mics that are only in our live stream that aren't even in our house mix. And you can do that when you have a separate stereo bus. So we have, audience mics that help a ton to give the feel of the room. We have some host mics that do some pre-service chatting. Those are only going into that other feed. But the great thing is that since we get that mix dialed in beforehand, it's still dependent on our audio mixers mix in the house a little bit as well. So we kind of set it and forget it. Honestly, we check it after our rehearsals, and the sound engineer will listen in the headphones, solo out that mix during rehearsals a little bit, and that's it. So you don't have to have a completely separate broadcast mix. And I've got a video on my channel where I actually like walk through that whole process of panning things and doing things in stereo and how to set that all up if you do have a digital board like an M32 or an X32, something like that. And there's lots of other good content on YouTube for you to get started in that.
Good, awesome. So ultimately, would you recommend obviously if you can afford it to get a digital mixer? And I also wanted to talk about using a DAW, like something like Logic Pro, Pro Tools, and stuff like that to mix your broadcast audio. What's your take on that?
Well, for us, the cost to benefit ratio is not high enough for us currently. I have 4 audio mixers, and none of them are like highly trained guys. They're just volunteers. And so to have them now have to completely create a fresh mix for the broadcast, while it might be cool that you can do like some sound replacement of drums, or maybe you're going to incorporate some Waves tune plugin or something which I'm not a fan of auto tuning vocals on live streams, just because the churches that I've seen do it, unless they're really, really big churches that know what they're doing, a lot of times there's too much trouble that can happen when it's left to its own devices, So we don't live tune vocals, even though that's something you could do, if you wanted to mix in a DAW. There's obviously a lot more flexibility, but I feel like there's more room for error almost in our scenario, and I think in most smaller churches scenario. Just to give you an idea, we run about 350 people on a Sunday morning, so we are not like a mega church by any means. But I'm really happy with our mix, and I've had tons of people message me like, "How do you do your mix?" And that's why I'm in the video. So,
but I actually it's because you told me use analog to mix for your broadcast mix, right?
We use the Midas M32, so it is a digital
board.
It's
the M32. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
But you could do it on an analog board. Same concept.
Yeah, because I don't know if I'm right, but it's kind of like analog sounds better. I mean, like, I'm not sure. I've seen this guy. I was recording a video in a wedding, and he was mixing live on an analog mixer, and it was just sounding so good. Like, he was putting in some effects and some reverb live, and I was actually impressed. I was like, wow. Like, because for me, I'm like, man, analog is gone.
I just think the diminishing returns is there for churches where it doesn't make sense to try and invest in analog gear. You have to have so much other outboard gear to accomplish what an X32 or any of these digital mixers can achieve, and your average church person is never going to hear it out of, probably you don't have speakers good enough in your space if you're looking at it like this to even maybe have that translate. And then if we're looking at live stream, I want it to be the very best it can be, but we also have to remember that, like, I don't know, more than half of our people are probably just watching on their phones as well. And so how can you stretch your budget the farthest? I think definitely digital is the answer nowadays for that. I mean, they've just come so far.
Yeah, I think digital, it gives you so much. So let's talk about actually having a separate engineer for your broadcast mix. Is this something, let's say, I understand some people, don't have enough staff to do stuff, especially in church. But is this something you should start thinking about maybe for the future? Like even for yourself, I know you're a full-time media pastor, but like you kind of right now doing almost everything, and you have volunteers. You kind of show them what to do.
Yeah.
But like, are you thinking of eventually 2 3 years from now on getting like somebody to kind of focus on the broadcast mix?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the best scenario, like if I was getting to choose, for sure, I would hire a in the room and hire a broadcast audio engineer that knows what they're doing. I mean, that's almost the most important band member that you have is your mixer, your audio guy. And so it's definitely important not to just like throw anybody in there like, hey, I'm a DJ. I know what I'm doing. I know what a fader does. Like that doesn't make you a sound guy. So, um, but for our guys, right now, it's working in our scenario. And one thing that is great about digital that really helped us kind of dial in things is being able to record all 32 channels of a rehearsal and then being able to play that back and do live mixing and testing of things with our broadcasts. And maybe, you go live in a private live stream and you just remix live the worship set from last Sunday and getting to actually play with different effects and maybe, oh, I need to have more reverb on the vocals for my live stream, or I need to have the crowd mics a little bit louder. So having the flexibility to do that and kind of pre-plan those things and preset is a big advantage for sure.
All right, let's see if we have some questions. Uh, Kindly check my question. I sent it above. Let me see. That's Dave Strachan.
Oh
Did you
yeah,
see
yeah. We
it?
talked about
Yeah,
yeah
we did.
the
Okay.
Black Magic cameras. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then we have another question here. Prism software, good or bad? You don't know about it?
Do you know about Prism?
Yeah, I think I have it on my phone. You could use it to live stream on your phone, but never tried it actually on a desktop. So it's actually a good software for live streaming from your phone. But I'm not sure if you could use it for live streaming on the desktop. So I'll have to check that out and probably get back to you. Um, we got Daniel. Thanks for being here, my man, Daniel. This is my friend from India. We got Carlos. Carlos is in the house from Spain. Thanks, man. Thanks for being here. Hi, Russell. Looks like we have some common friends. Um, Thank you so much. Looking towards investing in that. Yes, man. I'm glad we could help. Let's say, Carlos, I have the Panasonic BGH1 and it's awesome. Yep. I think it's an awesome camera. Um, let's see. I've got a question on lighting. We've got four 230 moving heads and about 12 LED lights all on stage. Must we turn off the entire lights in the auditorium and leave the stage lights? All right, I'll let you answer that.
You think he's talking about like initially setting up your cameras, or
No,
what
I
do you
think
think?
I think it's talking about lighting. So basically, you see like how people dim lights in the audience and
Hmm.
then leave the stage lights on during,
Oh, I see.
the
Yeah, yeah,
service. I
yeah.
think that's what he's trying to say,
Yeah, I got you.
if I'm not mistaken.
Well, here's the deal. If you've got moving heads and you're trying to utilize, uh, you know, beams, you're definitely going to need to dim the lights. And more importantly than that, if you don't have a hazer, you're going to have to invest in a good haze. And I mean, good haze makes cheap lights look a lot better. We have not invested like in super expensive moving headlights, but we did invest in some decent haze, and that's the Ultratech Radiance is what we use. But I know there's some others out there. But yeah, unless you're just wanting to paint color on like white walls, you definitely don't have to turn off lights for that if they're powerful enough. But for us, we're trying to utilize color and movement and light intensity to kind of help translate what's happening in the music and the message of the music. It's like this full experience that we're trying to have happen. And so if that's what you're going for, then yeah, you'll probably have to turn off the house lights. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's kind of subjective because I've seen some people actually they will kind of dim their house lights during worship, and then during the message they will turn them on. I think it's kind of subjective, honestly. But if you like, again, it depends on the kind of look you're going for. If you're going for this modern kind of church looking look, then you probably gonna have to do that. I mean, I see Elevation and Bethel, these big churches, they kind of dim most of their music videos or worship videos. The audience lighting is kind of dimmed, right? So if you're looking for that kind of look, then that's the look to go for. Then during the sermon, you can maybe have some lights on. It's really like I would say sometimes you just gotta be you. You gotta be you,
Yeah.
and like you don't have to do what other people do. That's just my take, you know?
Yes. Have a vision though for what you're
Yeah,
trying to accomplish. And yeah,
yeah,
don't just copycat people.
yeah, exactly. So let's see. We may have some other questions here. Um, that's okay. How do you route your audio to broadcast when you are using one mixer board? I think you talked about this, but if you don't mind, maybe a few seconds talk about this again.
Yeah. So for us, we're using a stereo bus. So we have two open XLRs out of the back of our board that we're sending two XLR cables into our ATEMs left and right. And so those are a stereo pair. And the nice thing about doing that, like on an X32 or an M32, we're running mono in our house speakers. We have three different line arrays. Those are all mono feeds. But since we're stereo into our live stream, we can now go in and pan instruments left and right. That's not using the panner on the like actual soundboard. It's built into one of the menus, and so you're panning between channels 13 and 14 on your bus, and which achieves panning. So, like I said, I do have a video that breaks down. If you just search on my channel, broadcast audio, it's a deep dive if you want to look into that.
Yeah, obviously. Guys, I've put a link to Russell's channel, so make sure you check him out. He has a lot of videos about all this kind of stuff, lighting, audio, anything you may need, honestly. I think we have another question here. It says, talking about DAW, how do you do that for live broadcast? I use a digital board, M32, so could you help me with how to route into a DAW and how actually send from the DAW to broadcast? Any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly have not done it. I mean, I think the typical way is you would just use your X32 or your M32 as a audio input device, and so that whenever you USB into a computer, you can utilize that in a DAW to set up like a template with those 32 channels, and then you can preset that out, and then you're just going to send the output of your master into your input, like an output of maybe your interface into the ATEM or whatever. And it's not as big a deal to deal with the USB latency if you're not having to worry about IMAG and all that stuff. The Some people will use like AES 50 to go from one mixer to another mixer, like your house station is doing one thing and then in another room you're doing another thing, or Dante, and those kind of stuff. But honestly, I've not dived into the DAW into a live broadcast, but it would just be a
Yeah.
matter of routing, within your
Yes,
software and
so
back
actually,
out.
yeah, actually, it's pretty simple. I think I've done it with one. I'm not an audio engineer, but I've done it with my friend. So basically, you depending on the DAW that you're using, so you you just connect you with M32 or X32. You can connect the USB out into a laptop or computer. Then depending on the DAW you're using, if you're using Logic Pro, your computer is going to see it as an interface. So from that, you're gonna be able to access all the channels you have on the board. right? So if you're singing, whatever is happening, it's gonna be you're gonna be able to see all the channels. You can apply live effects, tune vocals and everything. Now, once you're done, the whole mix is done in a computer. You can decide, either you want to send it out with an interface, another interface, or I've seen some people just connect the normal aux cable to ATM Mini Pro, and it does work. So it would depend on where you want to send it. If you're using the same computer to live stream, probably you're gonna find a way to route it within the
Yeah.
computer. But other than that, it's actually very very simple. And any DAW, either using Pro Tools, Logic Pro, you're gonna be able to actually see all the inputs in the DAW. So very very simple. Um, then you can, if you have some presets you want to use, obviously you're gonna go ahead and use those. So we are actually about to end the stream. We've gone over 7 minutes. Let's see if we have some last minute questions here. Think we should do another stream because it looks like people have a lot of questions. Let's see. Albert says, "How do I recruit people to my team?" I think you can give us quick tips here, Russell. How to get volunteers, I assume.
Yeah, man. I've got a vlog all about that actually that talks about my method for getting volunteers. And here's the key: uh, cattle calls, announcing things from the stage, putting things in a newsletter. That doesn't work. And honestly, it usually is going to get you like the wrong people. So here's the key: look for people in your church, know the people in your church that have like maybe just a little bit of skill set. Maybe somebody, is in IT and they work at a bank, and you're like, you know what? That will translate to being able to work with computers. Or maybe somebody's a realtor and they're always like posting stuff on social media and making little videos of themselves. Maybe that's a person that kind of has an understanding of how cameras might work or something, and you could at least framing and things like that. So specifically going to them and just asking them is the best way. And then for us, we also kind of have like a farm system with our youth group, especially with our new youth center that's being renovated. Like I said, we're trying to have the similar equipment. So as they're cross-trained in there, it translates into our worship center as well. I have tons of youth that serve in our worship teams in the tech ministry. It's awesome. And let me just say this: some of my best volunteers are women. They just are great. They pay attention. They are detail oriented a lot of times, and they're great at running Pro Presenter, doing light cues. One of my best video directors was a 16-year-old girl. So don't be afraid to just have people come and shadow, and just give them a way to, like, a path to success, and an easy job first, so they can feel like they're winning and doing a good job. So I don't know. That's just some of my off the cuff kind of thoughts.
Cool, cool. Let's go to, I think we have another question here. It says, I have an M32 2x2 M-Track sound card, but I don't know how to use it on my Mac laptop for our church live stream. Any thoughts?
It sounds just like a simple 2x2 interface, two input, two
Yeah,
output. So
yeah,
you're just most interfaces nowadays are plug and play. And I think, you don't usually have to find the drivers for them. But you may have to just look and see, like, do you need drivers for that to work? Typically you plug in a USB out of your interface and it's going to show up in your sound options in your outputs and inputs. That's what I would look into.
yeah. If it doesn't work, it's probably, I'm not sure. I think it's the M audio, right? M track. I think it's
That's what
from
it's.
M
Yeah,
audio.
I think I had an old inbox that was, I don't know what they
Yeah,
call it, but it was pretty old, and it may not work with
yeah.
like your updated operating system.
Yeah, that's what I felt because I'm using an M Audio USB microphone here. I mean, it's kind of old, but like it does work with Windows. I don't need to download drivers and stuff. But I'm not sure if it will work with the Mac computer. So it could be that try it on Windows and see if it works. But other than that, usually it's just plug and play. It should work. And then I think, let's see, this one is just high life production tips and tools. Can you do a tour, Transformation Church? Okay. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the video. So basically, I actually thought about it. That's on my list. So we'll see. You gotta pray for me. I'll send an email if they say yes. I would love to do it.
Well, come on down, Sam. That's my hometown. I've talked to them a little
Oh,
bit over there.
oh, really?
Yeah, they're not even actually in their church right now. They're in their old building while their new church, the Spirit Bank Event Center, is getting renovated. If you're not familiar with Transformation Church, Mike Todd, it's like one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing church in America, and they don't even meet in person right now. It's all online. And
Wow.
Transformation Nation, but they have this huge center that they're actually having to sound reinforce all the way around it with like 3 foot cement walls or something because it's in the middle of like the heart of neighborhoods and stuff. And they're not
Yeah.
open yet, but I think it definitely merits a tour when they're done because they have some awesome tech, and I love the way they utilize technology like in the
Yeah.
right way to really further a
Yeah.
message. It's not just like all flashy for flash's
Yeah.
sake.
Yeah. I think it's a good church. Let's see. So, guys, I think we are over time. Let me know if you want another live stream. Looks like Russell is very popular. We have another question. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But Lakewood Tech tour. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for the tips. Okay, so looks like no, we have no more questions. So Russell, I think we're gonna be closing. Let me know you have any last words, something you wanna tell all the people following right now. First of all, thank you so much for agreeing on this live stream. I think it was helpful, packed with a lot of value. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate the work that you're doing. And again, is there anything you would like to tell the audience before we close?
Yeah, man, I love just the what I've learned through doing all this YouTube stuff is how many guys are doing the same stuff we're doing, and it's so cool just to be able to connect and kind of share this journey together and do the very best that we can for our churches or however you're using this technology. And the thing that I always end my stuff with is that we can do all of this stuff for a lot of good reasons, but really the best reason is that it's for God's glory. It's not about us and to try and make us famous. It's we're trying to make the gospel known. And so use tech, be a good steward, and give God the glory.
Yeah, it looks like people in the chat are saying that they need another live stream. So I'm officially asking you, would you like
Let's
to
do
come
it.
back?
Let's do it.
Perfect. All right, guys. So he said yes. We just gonna have to find it another date, and then we're gonna do another live stream. Maybe we could actually. There's a way you can live stream on my channel on your channel at the
Yep.
same time. So maybe that could be something we could try. All right, guys. So thank you so much for joining the stream today. I appreciate your time. Hopefully you're gonna be able to. Hopefully you learned something today, and you're gonna be able to improve your church live streaming. Again, you don't have to spend a lot of money. You only need to actually invest in your knowledge. So know your lighting, your audio. Spend more time learning on how to do, your lighting, your audio, getting the best settings in your cameras and stuff. But other than that, you don't have to buy expensive cameras. I have nothing against and nothing wrong. I have nothing against, getting expensive cameras, but make sure you invest in your knowledge first. Okay. Once you have something, you have invested in your knowledge, then you can go ahead and buy the cameras that you need, not the cameras that you want. Okay, there's a big difference. All right, guys, so thank you so much for being here. I think this is it. Russell, thank you so much again for being here, and hopefully I'll see you on another live stream. Thank you, guys. I'll see you on another video or another live stream. Thank you, guys. Take care.